There is a moment in every life when you decide to rise, to stand taller than your fear, to speak louder than your doubt, to chase the vision that sets your soul on fire. This is that moment. And here, we walk it together with stories that awaken, voices that inspire, and truths that set you free. This is Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where hope has a voice, and that voice is yours. And welcome to the show, everybody. We got a great show for you today. Of course, I realize I always say that, but I mean it. I really do, honestly, because Susan M. Barber is with us today, and she's the author of The Visibility Factor. She's also an executive coach, and I know where she used to work because I used to work for these same people 100 million years ago. And welcome to the show. So, and by the way, Burchelle is with us. She is incognito because she's lost her visibility for the moment, but she's energizing herself and is going to get it back here at any moment. So if you suddenly see her, that's why. But Susan, it is great to have you here. I enjoyed our 50-minute chat that we had originally, and am so looking forward to a great conversation that we have today.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about your background. You were worked for 500 a big company. Jeez.
Big company, yes.
Big company, and it was Kraft Foods. I worked for Kraft Foods at one point in time before they sold their distribution division and to somebody else, because apparently they didn't like it. They didn't like me anymore, apparently.
I wouldn't take it personally. I think it was more business related would be my guess. But
I think you're absolutely right. But tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and all the things that you've done. And now you're an executive coach and you work with people to help them do the best here, rather than me explain to you what you do, why don't we have you explain to us what you do? And then Burchelle, are you there? And she's on mute at the moment, but she'll get here eventually.
That's all good.
Maybe not. And so, okay, Susan. So she'll get here when she gets here. So, Susan, tell us about yourself and your background and how you ended up doing this, which is really a cool thing that you're doing.
Yeah. So I spent 26 years at Kraft. When I left the company, it was now Kraft Heinz. And I was in sales, supply chain, food service, and IT. And I spent a lot of my career just going through a lot of leadership opportunities, leadership programs, and different things like that. And so as I started to get to this place of what does this transition at Kraft look like now with the new company, I was already getting my coaching certification. And I thought, it's about time maybe for me to go out and try something else. So I started my own business at the end of 2015 and started primarily focused on leadership. And then I realized that there's a lot of people who struggle with visibility, and I did too. And so when I thought about that, I thought, maybe that could be a place to help support people and teach them what I learned, right? And then I decided to write this book, which took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. Not because I couldn't write it, but because I was still holding on to this corporate armor and trying to be somebody that I think I wanted to be a perfect person, right? I didn't want to show all the negative stuff that I was holding on to still. And so when the book came out, a lot of people said, wow, that story really resonates with me. It's things that I went through. It's things that I'm still going through. How did you navigate that? And so that has really been a focus for me, leading workshops and one-on-one coaching and working with companies to help their teams start to do more things around speaking up and learning how to show their value and what impact they're making. And now I have a new workbook coming out in about a month called Your Journey to Visibility, which is a little bit more of implementation, helping people more with the how to implement visibility into their world. And so I'm excited for that to come out next. So that's a little bit about me.
Perfect. And, I got to tell you, visibility is a big deal now. There is how do you help people break through the noise? Because there is a lot. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot of noise out there.
Yeah. I mean, it depends kind of what their goal is, right? If they want to be within their own company, it's helping them start to recognize the things that they're good at, the things that make them unique and stand out, and trying to leverage those things because that will set them apart from everyone else. But a lot of people that I work with are quieter, maybe a little bit under the radar. They struggle a little bit, but they're high achievers and they want to progress. And so it's helping them learn how to do that in a way that doesn't feel like bragging, that feels very comfortable for them. And they can start to, I call it take baby steps, right? Take little baby steps to start to show up in a bigger way and be more visible. But if they want to do something externally, let's say in social media, that's also something that we spend a little bit of time on, focusing on how can they start to show thought leadership, talk about things that they care about, and really start to help people see them in a different way. So yes, on social media, it's definitely very busy out there and a little bit loud. But I think within companies, it can be the same way. It's just a little bit of a different approach.
I'm amazed at the number of people who say, "Oh no, I don't want to talk about myself. I don't. I who am I?" And they could be a CEO, or they could be somebody that's made some really interesting progress in their life. And like, look, I'm not gonna brag. But if you're not going to get on the mountaintops and speak and yell at the top of your lungs for who you are, I don't think anybody else is going to do that either.
No. And I think a lot of people, and I believed this for a long time incorrectly, which was that I thought my manager would be talking about me and sharing all the good things, right? But your managers today are so busy and crazy with multiple meetings to be at and their own stuff to worry about. So you really have to find your own voice and start to advocate for yourself and to meet with other people so that they can advocate for you as well. So it definitely is something that I had to learn the hard way. And I want other people to not have to go through that.
And I would hate to say it, but there's also the thing about bosses is that they want to toot their own horn, and they're not really interested in tooting somebody else's horn because you may end up taking their job. And so there's
Mhm.
a little bit of that too, isn't there?
I mean, there can be. It depends on, I'll say, the security level of that leader. So if they're a secure leader, they should be wanting to help their team grow, develop, give them opportunities for new things and to get exposure. Because a leader's also, I'll say, looked at to say, are you developing your team? Are you someone we want to help develop the team in the organization? So the insecure leaders, I will say, struggle with that a bit because they do worry about having their job and someone taking their job. And if you're a really good leader, you're going to find something else within the organization, and they're going to represent other types of things that you could do, maybe higher level value, doing something bigger than you're doing today. So I always tried to say, to me, I want my team to succeed. Of course, I want myself to succeed too, but not at the cost of my team. That is not going to help them.
There's this big debate, I think. Well, I don't know how big it is, but there's a debate in my mind that are leaders born or are they made, or can a leader who is not born to be a leader be made to be a leader? And have the compassion and the understanding of creating a great team around them that makes them a better leader. Am I right in any of that?
Yeah, I think some people definitely are born leaders. I would say my daughter is. She just kind of came out as a born leader. She can't help herself. But I think for me, like in my own style, if I use myself as the example, I never imagined that I would be doing some of the things that I did at Kraft. Even I thought, I want to go to this high. That's fine for me. I don't want to have a big team and all of that. But once you get to that level, you start to say, you know what, actually, I could do that. And so as I started to see what other people were doing and started to learn from them and from the things that I was doing, I thought, you know what, I can absolutely do this. So sometimes I think it's just the disconnect in our brain, right? That says, oh, that feels too big and it's a little scary. And should I do it? And we might talk ourselves out of it. But once you recognize the fact that you can do it, it's really quite wonderful, honestly, to be a person who leads a team, leads big transformational efforts within the company, and to start to get the recognition and to start to build your confidence. I think that's the biggest part of leadership sometimes is, do you have the confidence to do more? And can you show other people how to do it, and develop your team to have a confident team as well? So it can go either way, but to me, I've seen it in someone who's been born with it, and I've seen it in myself who has really developed it over time.
How big a factor is the stories that we've told ourselves because other people have told us these stories over life that, oh no, you can't do that. And why do you think you're a leader? Or you're not very smart, or just stay in your lane. And all the things that we get told. My voice tends to sound like my mother. I think I need Freud to help me out with that. But but you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we all tell ourselves stories that are probably not very correct or true.
Yeah. I definitely had all of those, right? So my degrees are management and marketing, and working in IT, I told myself a whole bunch of stories, right? I don't belong at the table with all the executives. I don't know enough to be in this role, even though everyone said, you're doing a great job, Sue. You're doing all the right things. I didn't believe it. And so when you don't believe it, your actions, the words you use, your behaviors all reflect that. And so I had to learn how to start to recognize my value and the things that I brought. But it's very common for a lot of people to be holding on to old stories, old situations, old things that people have told them. I'll use an example for me. My mom told me I couldn't draw a straight line, and so I couldn't do art. I wasn't creative.
So your mom said the same thing to you that mine said to me.
It's so common. It's really interesting to see how many people have that same story. But over time, I took a class with Brene Brown, and when Oprah was doing some class, and she had us create this art journal. And I thought, wow, I'm actually way better at this than I thought. And I've been living with this old, stupid story for my entire life. It's ridiculous now to think about that, but I did. So we have to question the thoughts that we have and say, are they true for us now? Are they still serving us or not? And if they're not, we can change them today. We don't have to wait for some big moment to change them. But that's not something a lot of people know. It's not something we're taught, that you can change the thought you have in your head at any time. No, we just have that thought and we just keep believing it and doing stuff because of it.
And sometimes we even reinforce it.
Mm-hmm.
And the art of unintended consequences is that if we don't believe, we can make that a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. We'll just find new things to reinforce it, right? We'll say, well, you don't have the right degrees, so you can't do this. You are an introvert, so you can't go to networking events. We'll create labels. We'll create all of these things to keep ourselves small. And of course, that's safer, but it's not actually getting us what we are hoping for in our career when we do that. So those were lessons that I had to learn, not to hide behind other people who maybe had louder voices or seemed to know more than I did. But once I recognized that, I came from a business background, I had a lot to bring to the table too. I just somehow gave the IT side of things more importance than what I had. And when I started to reconcile that, I thought, what, I can contribute a whole bunch here that people who've only had IT don't know necessarily. So everybody has their own gifts and unique strengths. And I think we all have to recognize those and embrace them and start to show up differently because of them.
Well, it is so true. And by the way, first of all, Rochelle, are you back with us? Apparently not. So she'll be here at one point. And you are so right. Now, I'll give you an example. I was in the restaurant business, and I went to work for Simmons Foods after my time with Kraft was over, and they turned into Alliant and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting having dinner with all these professional traveling sales guys, and they'd gone everywhere, and they'd sold chicken to TGI Fridays and Old Spaghetti Factory and Claim Jumper and all these guys. So I thought, these guys are really talented. They're really good. So we're sitting there having dinner, And they said, well, one guy said, well, we need to know how restaurateurs look at the things that we're trying to sell them. And I said, well, that's actually pretty easy. This 8-ounce chicken breast, this is what they paid for it, and this is what they charge for it. And they buy French fries in a 40-pound box. And these guys are mesmerized by the fact that I knew stuff that they didn't know, and I was shocked that I thought stuff was common knowledge, so it never came up. And that kind of thing. So it's really interesting how you create a environment for yourself that doesn't work, and it's not right, and so you poo-poo your natural gifts, because I don't know if is poo-poo a word, by the way. I don't know.
I mean, I guess you can use it, sure.
But Susan M. Barber is our guest, and by the way, go to her website, which is susanmbarber.com, as a matter of fact. Yes. And when we come back from this break, we're going to talk about her book and stuff. But I did want to play this little piece that I do on leadership, and I'd love your opinion on the other side, since you're an executive coach and a leadership specialist. Here are some points to ponder from Positive Talk Radio. Some say leadership is about getting the work done, about pushing forward, no matter the cost. But what's the cost of a team with no purpose? What if a single act of support, a single moment of genuine grit could change everything? What if leadership was a catalyst? Because true leadership isn't about being in control. It's about empowering others to find their purpose. It's about leading with passion and igniting the fire in everyone around you, creating a culture of teamwork and common purpose. A true leader finds this culture by enthusiastic purpose and team development, making each team member feel empowered to create, improve, and execute their tasks with genuine passion and a strong belief in the company's mission and focus. In other words, lead with purpose. Welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin McDonald. There she is, the mystery woman, Rochelle. is right there. Susan, what did you think of that? And can you help me make it a better presentation?
Well, I thought it was actually really good. I totally believe in the fact that leaders need to help inspire people and give feedback. And I love the fact that you talked about reaching out to them and talking to them about what they did well. And I think anybody who's working for a company wants to feel like they're doing something bigger, right, than themselves, and that they're achieving some purpose, especially anyone in Gen Z right now. They care a lot about purpose. So if you're working for a company that doesn't display that or talk about that, they feel kind of disconnected. So I totally love it.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. Rochelle, are you Gen Z?
I haven't looked it up. I'm not gonna. I think it makes me feel a little bit more included, because we all can be included in so many things. But Susan, one of the things that you talked about that is Gen Z completely is, don't you think how crazy it is? They're very focused on this purpose, and they want to make that difference, right? It's like curiosity is the new age. But when it comes to working with people who are more introverts, how you talk about that, is there like a certain step or frame or one key thing that you do with them that helps them realize that what they have inside can impact everything outside of them as well?
Yeah, I think usually what happens is that they've stopped believing in themselves and that they don't think that they have something to contribute. And so we'll talk about some of the things that they're good at, some of the things that they've done in their past, and just starting to at least have me say some things to them that they maybe haven't heard before. Like, oh my God, that's amazing. Have you told anybody about that? My belief in them sometimes is the catalyst that helps them start to believe in themselves again and builds their confidence. And then they start taking actions that they've never taken before, and it works, and they're very excited. And so to me, it's about starting to just recognize where the gap is for them and starting to help them come back to what they're really good at and leveraging that in a bigger way.
Yeah, that's
Be-
major
because
important.
yeah, because they get blocked. They get a block because they may have had a supervisor that didn't think they were all that in a bag of chips,
Right.
and they thought they were just kind of ordinary. But sometimes in my professional career, I found that it's important to bring things out in people that you see in them, but they, hi Rochelle, they don't see in themselves.
Rochelle has that, I take it, huh?
I have to tell you a quick story real quick. We're doing a music show, Rochelle and I, on the Brushwood Media Network, and it's 9 a.m. Eastern. And what I've done is I've taken conversations that she and I have had and taken snippets out of that and edited it. And then we play some of these between songs and have a little dialogue between songs and stuff. And she'd never heard me do this, and she'd never heard any of the shows until today. And I played her some of the clips that we had created together, and she was just, well, what were you?
I was crying, Susan.
Oh.
I'm not gonna deny it. I was crying, and it's I think that it is a gift to have somebody come into your life and be able to speak upon you the things that maybe you lack, but in the most loving way, right? Like
Yeah.
Kevin's seen so many of these things, and he told me, "Hey, I see how this is affecting you here, and this is why." And then there's no pressure, and it's just, I want you to figure out what's best for you. This is what I see. And if this is also affecting you, how can I help you to fix this? And it doesn't matter who's by your side to be able to do that. It's important to maybe have that person. It sounds to me like you were that person for
Yeah.
so many people. And bless
Yeah.
your heart, because as I said, it brought me to tears. I told Kevin, up until about a year and a half, 2 years ago, all my life I prayed to God, just please take me. I don't want to do this, and I don't want to be here, and I don't want to live, and I don't understand anything. And I've come to a point to where when I put myself in that mode of allowing the universe to speak to me and through me and all the crazy things people think are impossible that we all have in us, it's kind of stopping in the present moment. And who am I? What am I doing? Why am I doing this? What's the purpose? What's the meaning? How do my decisions reflect upon my life and my story, and what do they lead to? And it's still hard for me to really come to terms with putting it in words. I'm just somebody I never thought I would be, and I always looked at myself from an outside perspective. I wanted to bring this up because the people that you work with probably do the same thing. As most people have told me, well, you're an extrovert. As much as I let you think that I am based upon what I show, right? And everybody
Right.
does that. This is human. We want people to perceive us in certain ways, but how confident and supportive are you in your system to just be who you are all the
Yeah.
time? And then when I hear Kevin reflect back some of the words I've said and just who I am, it's nothing but emotion. I mean, I'm so proud of myself, but I'm so thankful. It comes down to nothing but gratefulness, because I didn't think this person was possible. And what is it like for you? I mean, I've asked Kevin this, but as a female, it's much different because we're so interconnected. But what is it like for you when you see these versions of people pop out and it's like, hey, let me reframe that. It's not this version of you. What is it like to meet yourself again and be confident in that? Like, from my perspective, I understand that, and many people do as they change. But from your perspective, what is that like? What kind of sense does that bring you?
I mean, to me, it's an honor, honestly, to get to be a part of their lives and to get them to start thinking about themselves in new ways and see new possibilities for themselves. I think it's hard to see them initially, right, where they don't believe that they're worth,
Yes.
or any of that. So, like what you talked about, I would call external validation, right? We're looking for someone else to tell us that we're great. and amazing.
Yeah.
And I did that for so many years at Kraft. I was waiting for a boss to tell me I was doing the right things, or a teacher to tell me, or my parents. We
Yeah.
grow up expecting that instead of looking inward and saying, you know what, I'm pretty amazing. And I love how you're talking about yourself right now, Rochelle, because more people need to recognize that they don't have to hear that from someone else to know that they're great and that they bring a lot to the party. And it's unfortunate that we are all kind of taught that way and conditioned to look for that.
Yeah.
When wouldn't it be great if we could start to change that with kids and say, you know what, you're amazing right now. If their parents said that to them, or if the teacher said that to them, and that they don't have to do anything different. Even if they don't get an A, they're still great for getting a C. So it's just an interesting thing to look at over your lifetime, where that happens and where you start to expect it and need it. And if you don't have it, then that's where you get stuck. So
Yeah.
internal validation is the way to go for sure. So I'm so happy to see that you have that and that Kevin is supporting you with that, because you definitely need it for sure.
Yes, thank you, Kevin. And before we go any further, I want to cover this. Is there any sort of time or age frame that you say this happens, or is this possible for all people?
I mean, I think it's definitely possible for all people, but I think generally around the age of 8, if something happens in your life, some kind of traumatic thing, someone said something to you, or you've been in an environment where it's more difficult, your body actually, in your nervous system, remembers that. And so a lot of times where I'll talk to people and I'll say, what happened to you as a kid? Not to be a therapist. I'm not a therapist. I'm not trained for that. But generally what I found is that there are situations that have happened in their life, or someone said something to them and they've held on to it their entire life. So you then experience that thing again. You just keep reliving it over and over again until you recognize that you don't have to hold on to that anymore. But no one tells you that, right? So you're just doing what you do and you think it's normal.
Yep.
I had that happen when I was 6 years old. We were at a friend of mine, and we went to somebody who I didn't know very well, and we were all the same age. And my friend had to go home, and I didn't. And so I thought I'd stay with this new guy and get to know him, and maybe we could play a game or we could do something. And I said, so what do you want to do? And he turned to me and he said, get lost. That's what I said.
Yeah.
And and I took a step back, and then I pretended, well, I'm lost and stuff, and trying to, and he said, no, I mean it. Get lost. I carried that stupid, he was 6 years old. I carried that with me for 20 years.
Yeah.
I wasn't
Kevin,
good enough.
he kind of gave you some insight though, because when you're lost, you're forced to find yourself. And if you have nothing else, as we speak about, what do you have? You have you. I don't think anybody else really lives in the understanding of, hey, if I have me, then I've got what I need, right? Like, does that make sense, or am I crazy?
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Yeah, love yourself, right? First. And I don't think a lot of people do that either. They tend to wait for someone else to say they're good enough and that they're pretty enough and that they're smart enough, instead of just recognizing that they're amazing, from the get-go. When they're born, they're amazing and they don't have to do anything different. But up until around 6 to 8 years old, we trust and believe in ourselves. And then as we get those other voices externally telling us things, we start to believe them because they're louder and they're more, I don't know, they may be more impressive to us at that moment, but we just don't realize that we don't have to choose to listen to that. And that's what's hard.
Why is it that we believe that other people are inherently smarter than us?
It's a great question. I think it's just because we don't have enough confidence, right? Or we may not have been raised in a place that gave us confidence to begin with and said, you're amazing, from like, imagine if Rochelle didn't ever think those thoughts, right? And she was only told good things and that she's amazing and all of those things happened for her. She wouldn't even question. If someone else was louder and saying something to her, she'd say, no way, you're wrong. But we tend to not always have that, right, when we're growing up. So I found that a lot of people, that's why they still are holding on to these old stories, and it just keeps replaying over and over and over again. Or they'll create situations where those stories become true, right? So I put myself in a position where I did not have an IT degree, so didn't know that was going to be an issue until I got there, and then it was, and then I had to figure out how to deal with that. So it's those things that no one tells you, and you just have to sometimes learn the hard way.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes an entire lifetime.
Yes.
But by the way, we're talking with Susan M. Barber, and you should go to her website, which is susanmbarber.com, and you should work with her because everybody needs a coach. And if you need higher visibility, if you need, you could always get the visibility factor too. That would be a good thing to do. Because what she's done is she's taken those things and she's put it out there so that you can follow some kind of rules. She's got a workbook coming out too in a month or so. Then you're gonna have to come back and we're gonna have to talk about that. Because,
For sure. Yes.
So we need to take our halftime break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the book and how it came to be, and it's gotten some really good reviews. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. You're listening to Positive Talk with Rochelle. She's right there, and she she charged up her thingamajig, whatever that was, and now she's good. So Susan and I will be right back right after this.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
Here's another point to ponder by Positive Talk Radio. A woman spent years hating the reflection in her mirror. One day, she whispered, "I am enough." Day by day, her reflection became her friend. Self-love begins with the words you tell yourself. Speak gently, because you are listening. This is brought to you by Positive Talk Radio, where stories of hope come alive. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Rochelle, and my name is Kevin, and Susan is right there. Susan, I played that specifically for a reason, because until you are able to, as matter of fact, one of the things that, one of the quotes that Rochelle did was that she looks in the mirror and talks to herself. She said, "You're not going to play that to anybody because I don't want people to know that I'm talking to myself." But, positive self-talk is a great way to begin the process of learning who you really are and getting rid of some of those stupid stories that people told you when you were 6. Isn't that right?
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say, imagine if all kids got to watch something like that growing up, right? And recognize that they didn't have to do anything different. They could just look in the mirror and say, "I'm enough." That was what was interesting about that Brene Brown thing that I did, is she had us write "you are enough" on our hand and do something in social media where everybody put that on their hand. And it was based on her book, From the Gifts of Imperfection. And to me, that was like, wow, I'd never thought that was true. Never believed that was true. But I forget how many people, thousands and thousands of people took that class, and we're all doing the same thing. So it really does have this shift inside of you. Like, you know what? I don't have to do anything different. I'm perfect the way I am. And it's a great thing.
Well, and if I can, I'd love to bring something up. And Susan, from your perspective, kind of curious more as to what you'd say about this, because it's something that many people probably think about. But what if we viewed more of what people tell us about ourselves as a way that they're trying to protect us because they don't know any better? How does it help our mind frame and understand and also forgive not only ourselves for believing these things, but for them for trying to protect us?
Whenever somebody criticizes, I always tell people that I'm coaching, that's about them, not about you. Yeah. Because they're really struggling, and the best, in their mind, a best offense is the best defense, right? So to them, they think that they're probably helping, quote unquote, helping you by saying these things, but it's really more about them. So I think sometimes we have to recognize the fact that, I don't know, if it's not a great manager, if it's a manager who's insecure, I will tell people, have some compassion. They never learned how to be a great manager. They're doing their best, right? our parents didn't always know the right things to do, right? They did the best that they could. You can't blame them forever. So I think there's a lot of things in forgiveness. I'm glad you brought that word up, because I didn't learn that for a long time either. You would hold on to a grudge, or you'd hold on to a situation. And, to me, that's just putting negativity inside of you. And it's not good for you to hold on to that. So forgive yourself, forgive other people for doing their best, and just try to do your best as well, because there's no perfection in the world anywhere. And we just have to all do our best, figure it out.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Sure.
If you recognize that that nobody's perfect and there is no perfection, but you do get points for trying to do the right thing for yourself and for others. In fact, to be kind and stuff like that.
Mhm.
When I was a kid, my mother had this thing that she apparently got from her father, which was never give somebody a compliment because they're going to get a big head. And so what she would do is, like, if I was playing ball and playing baseball and I made a great play, she said, that was a really great play, but you could have done a little bit better, because there was always a but in there. And so I stopped accepting the compliment and then listened to the negative part, but you could have done better, and kind of thing. And that really set me back as far as learning who I could be, because then I didn't feel like I could be that. Does that make any sense?
100%, right? And your mom was just doing the best she could because that's what she learned from her dad. And
Yep.
her dad was doing the best that he did because of what he learned probably from his parents. It's such a cycle, right? That just continues until somebody breaks the cycle and recognizes that, you know what, that's not true about me, right? But you have to have confidence or someone to believe in you to say that that's not something you need to listen to. You don't have to trust that. You could do your own thing. So yeah, I had plenty of those things too. Probably a whole book full if I wanted to write them all out, but it's not helpful to continue to stay in that place. And I'm a big believer in you kind of learn the lessons you need to learn when it's time. And so I'm glad you learned it, Kevin. I don't know when that happened for you, that you recognized that, but the sooner you can learn those lessons, you can move forward, right? You're no longer holding on to that old stuff.
And Susan, I have to bring this up because so many of the people that are in my generation now, it's like, this is all that's really ever been known. Changing that is, you probably understand it, but it brings a lot of questions. It brings a lot of confusion and emotions. And I mean, it makes other older people maybe in your life think about why, like, Brachelle's just insane. If you ask people in my life, I'm just crazy, and that's okay, because
in a good way.
Yes,
in a good way.
I will do the impossible. And for even someone out there like me, they already have kids and they're already in this mojo, and now they're teenagers and now they're in the new mojo. And it's like, is there a way you help them kind of like come to a point with themselves so that they can carry that on through, we care and we love these people, even though they're super confused and they think we're insane. There's still a respect and a love boundary, because you are the reason I'm alive.
Yeah.
How do you kind of help them? Like, do you talk about that in the book, about how to kind of move through the changes you're making when everyone around you is like, this isn't normal, what the hell are you doing, type of thing?
Not specifically in that way, but I think
Yes.
there's very common things that we all have because we had parents who didn't always know everything, right? Even if I look at myself as a parent, there are things I wish I could go back and change. I can't, right? Because I didn't learn what I know now, except in the last 10 years. So my kids are 27, 25, and 19. So they learned things later that I wish I could have taught them earlier. So they know now how to have a conversation without a phone, how to ask for what they want. All of that came because I told my husband, I'm becoming a new wife for you after 25 years, because I needed to change how I showed up for them. I need to set a different example for them. And I didn't know how to do that before I went through coaching and learned how to be a coach and learned all this stuff that we're talking about today. I just didn't know any of that. So Imagine, people understanding that you grew up differently than they did, and that's okay. You're doing things that are different than I am, and that's okay. Right? Just I tend to say assume the best in others, right? They're doing their best, you're doing your best. Why does it have to be a certain way or not, right? Like, we have this black and white world sometimes, and I'm a big believer in the gray. There's a lot of gray in the middle, right? So let's stay in the middle and say whatever you're doing is good for you and whatever I'm doing is good for me. Doesn't mean that we have to change each other. And trust me, as someone who's been married for a really long time, you cannot change the other person. All you can do is accept them for who they are, and they accept you for who you are, and you just choose to go through life that way. But, I think way back when my mom said, "You're marrying your father." And I said, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not. He's totally my father. Totally my father." So I just couldn't see it. I couldn't see it. So
That's crazy. I married my mother.
see, that's how this works. Mm-hmm.
And I knew my mother a lot longer than I knew my ex-wife. It turns out to be. Anyway, the one thing, Susan, that I just wanted to mention was that sometimes it isn't what you tell people either. And I know in your work, this, that you can't tell someone, like when Rochelle first started with me, I said, Rochelle, you've got an amazing amount of talent. You can do anything you want to be. And her response internally, without telling me this, was, "Oh, no, you're crazy. What's the matter with you? Have you been drinking? What's up?" And so it wasn't until I started to show her stuff that she was doing and what she was saying that she had to, begrudgingly, how it might have been, to admit that maybe she was but that's how the human animal works. Yeah. And when you're helping somebody and they try what you're telling them to do and it works, suddenly a light comes on, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. I get the best. I use Voxer with a lot of people so they can leave me voice messages. And to listen to these voice messages where they talk about, I tried what you talked about. We put this together. I had this conversation and they said I should go to the senior leader meeting. Can you believe that? And it all happened because we just said, what if you just try? Just ask to go support your manager. Tell him you'll be there to answer questions. And he not only invited her and had her come to one meeting, but he had her come to all 3 meetings with the entire C-suite of the company. So it's these little things that sometimes I think people are afraid to try. And I'll just encourage, like, let's just ask. They can say no. Like, what's the worst that can happen? They say no. Yeah. So I think we're all afraid of hearing feedback that's hard or being told no. To me, it's not a no, it's a not yet, right? Maybe you're not ready for this meeting yet, but maybe next time. But you've now said something that says, I want to be there. I want to be in the room, right? So it's just a lot of fear. People operate from a lot of fear and they don't even know it. And the more that we can help encourage them to try something, now she's going to try more things, right? Because she tried that and it worked. You just need to give them some opportunities to try.
Well, it's kind of like when I was 16 and I went to a dance and there was a girl on the other side of the dance floor that I said, she's somebody that I'd love to dance with. And I went over to her and she looked me up and down and said, not a chance. And that's one
but
of those
I bet
things
she thought about it.
Yeah.
She not for long.
But you went over and asked. Look at the bravery you had, right?
That gave you that chance to change, Kevin. Because even if, think about this, and the person I know Kevin to be, he'll ask many things and he'll figure out his ways. And if he gets a no, there's no disruption of life. It's not this, well, I guess I'll just figure something else out. That's not who I am. That's not what I'm meant to be. And it doesn't become this huge thing. It's just, okay, well, what's next? And I'm wondering, after we take this break, I'd love for you to talk about in your book, if there's ways for you to help people come to terms with it's okay to change and and just seeing it as a positive view, because it's terrifying and it's supposed to be, right? I think.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So is being 16 and asking a pretty girl out to dance.
Yeah.
That is the most terrifying thing I have ever gone through in my life. And then as a matter of fact, I think she said no and I left. That was like I could.
You just said, why not?
Yeah.
No, I didn't want her to go into it. Well, let's
Oh,
see. You're
that's
here, and all that stuff.
You just have to say you're missing out. You're missing out now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would have said that if I could actually dance, but I had no idea what I was doing. So.
Any dance.
So we'll be right back. Susan M. Barber. Go to susanmbarber.com. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the visibility factor, because it is something that we all, if you want to be wow, I think this transcends business. If you want to be successful in anything, you need to be okay with being visible, and being invisible doesn't work. If you want to attain what you would love to be able to do. So we need to take this break. We'll be right back. Michelle's right there. Susan M. Barber's our guest, and my name is Kevin, and we'll be right back. Here's another point to ponder by Positive Talk Radio. One man lost everything he thought to find him: his job, his marriage, even his confidence. At rock bottom, he realized the one thing no one could ever take was his will to rise again. Sometimes life has to break us open so we can discover the strength we never knew was inside. Remember, your lowest point is not the end. It can become the very foundation of your greatest comeback. And you are listening to Positive Talk Radio, where stories of hope come alive. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, and Michelle's right there, and Susan M. Barber is our guest, and she's an executive coach. She's also an author. She's also a podcaster. You do a whole bunch of stuff. And what made you decide that you wanted to write this incredibly important book?
Well, I definitely went through the challenge myself of not being visible. And I thought I was. So it was kind of a shock to me that I was not being visible in the way that I, in my head thought I was. And so when I got that feedback, I'm thinking about what you asked, Rochelle, like I had a choice. Do I leave the company because I'm not thought of the way that I thought I was, or do I do something about it? And so I think, to me, my career and all the years I'd already put in there were too important for me to just walk away. And so I thought, I'm going to figure out how to do this. I have no idea how to be visible in a way that's not bragging, but I'm going to figure it out. And so I just started observing other people or getting advice from other leaders that I respected, and learned how to do it in a way that was really authentic for me. Because you're right, change is scary. It feels, it's uncertain. It's the unknown of what's that going to look like on the other side. And we can't even imagine what that looks like yet. But when we start to go down that path and just take a few baby steps, and we start to see what's possible, it allows you to have a little more momentum to do more, to try more. And for me, I started seeing clients pretty early on in my company that were having the same challenges I had. And I thought, well, this is interesting, right? Everybody had this problem. I thought it was only me, but it's everybody, a lot of people. And so I started coaching them on what I learned and started helping them go through it. And then they started making some progress. They started getting promotions. They started getting new opportunities. They started getting recognized by leadership. And at first it feels like a disconnect. Like, I'm shocked. Why? They know my name. How do they know who I am and what I do? Right. And then they realize, oh my gosh, it's because I've been doing all these things. So it's just starting to help them down this journey. And that's why the new workbook is called Your Journey to Visibility, because I wanted people to recognize that there are a lot of things I can share with you, but this is your journey, right? You get to choose the journey that you want to be on, and you get to choose how you want to implement it. So I call it like a choose your own adventure. I don't know if, Rochelle, you may not remember those books, but I bet Kevin remembers those books where you could choose different pieces. And I always found those to be such a cool book to have. And they were personalized. My mom had them personalized for my sister and I. And so it was a lot of cool things that were really related to our family. And so I wanted people to be able to have fun with this workbook and to implement some of the things that were in the visibility factor as well. But it's about being open to change. I think just knowing that you can, but being open to doing it, and that it's not going to be easy. It's not going to happen overnight. If I could flip a switch for people and say magically you're confident and you can do all these things, that would be great. But that just isn't how it works. Our brain is really powerful and it wants to keep telling us that's not safe. Don't do that. And as long as we listen to that, we won't make any change happen.
Rochelle?
Yeah, I'm just thinking like there's such a positivity in it though. Kevin has taught me, yes, I'll admit that I had an unnecessary fear for the unknown, because there is that good and the eye opening and the this is who I am that kind of brings that along. But also when you hit that point, for a long time, I think I was stuck kind of in between, and I love gray. That's my favorite color. Everyone tells me it's not a color. I don't care. But I love gray. And so I agree with you because I'm somebody who's able to see who I was then. And I love her. Man, she kept me safe. She kept me alive. She helped me build myself into what I am now. But also to not, for a long time I thought, Kevin, well, if I show my face and I do this and I say this, then in this world, maybe it's not so real, oh, she's delusional. And yes, ma'am, I am, but in the most positive way, because
Right.
if I don't have that, what do I have? I have the same as what I've had then, and I have the same as what I have now. And I think there's maybe just a point to where it comes to, well, what can I be? And what can I make happen? What can I create? Do you go through a section in your book that talks about maybe how beautiful it is on the other side once you get through that struggle, rather than like there was no fear for me, because I saw that anything was possible and we're only limited to our beliefs. So do you talk about that?
Yeah, I just presented on something about this because I think for me, for sure, I didn't accept myself the way I was. I kept thinking I needed to change. I needed to do something different, right? I needed to fit in better. But what I didn't recognize is that the gifts I had and the things that I already had were amazing. And so when I got to that place, I wrote 2 paragraphs about this. So I was like, I have all these gifts. Why am I like devaluing them? It was so ridiculous. But because we're good at things, and the things that we're good at, we can't see them as good. We see them as just part of who we are. Like, oh, that's no big deal. I do that all the time. But you might say, Rochelle, to me, Sue, that's amazing that you're doing that. I can't believe you can do that. Well, when people say that to you, that means that's a gift that you have, and you have to embrace it and say, you know what, I could help you with that. I can help you learn how to do that too. So I think sometimes we diminish ourselves because it feels like no big deal. The things that we're really good at are the strengths that we have, instead of embracing them and using them to set ourselves apart. And so for me, I wrote something about, it was an amazing day when I realized I didn't have to stand behind anybody else. I just got to be me. I got to do the great things I was doing. I didn't have to wear a mask anymore and hide and become this person that I thought everybody else wanted me to be. I just got to be me. Because then it's just even energy, right? You're not negative energy or positive energy. You're not trying to be something you're not. You're just you. And it's such a burden off your shoulders, honestly, to just show up that way.
Yeah, it's so freeing. It really is. It's weird. but
yeah,
it's more comfortable than the uncomfortable. And I don't know how that makes sense still. But I'm not fighting it. There's no trying to figure it out. And I think you come to a point to where when you accept these things, there's not like, well, I gotta figure this out. I have to have the answer. I have to control this. I have to know. Because then it's, well, I know that what I do and who I am will reciprocate in that same way. And that brings a ton of peace, right?
Yeah. Acceptance is a beautiful thing. If everybody could just slow down and stop trying all these other things that they think they need to do and just accept who they are, it's really an amazing place for sure.
I agree.
One of the things that I worked with Rochelle on, because when I first met her, she was all over the place, and she was, I got to do this, and I got to control that, and this, and not, and what happens if this happens? I don't know. If that happens, what's going to happen there? And I said, first of all, she made my head hurt. Second, and secondly, I said, have you ever heard the gospel according to Paul McCartney? And she said, I don't know what you mean. And I said, just let it be.
Let it be.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine. Just let it be, because your natural gifts are going to overcome. And that's what a lot of us don't understand. And that's why, Susan, it is so important to have someone in your corner that you can call to say, you know, the CEO came up to my desk and he said, what do you think? And I kept stammering over myself, and I felt really stupid because I didn't have anything immediately to say, and to come to you and to talk to you, and so that you can work through that with them to then to help them. Okay, you know, like take a deep breath and just prepare and then speak and recognize that he puts his pants on the same as you do. He wears underwear, hopefully, maybe, and that he's no better. And that's the one thing that I wish people would understand, because I get a lot of people, Susan, that are saying, why aren't you interviewing celebrities and big time folks? And I said, they're not nearly as smart as Susan B. Barber or M. Barber is, because she's good. She's really good at what she does. And we get more accomplished out of a conversation that we have with you than we would somebody that has an agenda and is thinking about their stardom and what they've got to do. And, I've got to mention, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
they're putting on an act for you, right? They're performing.
Well, that's why they call them actors.
Right.
Well, and most people are like that, just as humans. I mean, when you're trying to change and you're trying to accomplish these things within yourself, your natural brain is like, you better knock it off. This is not what we do, and you know that. And so it's like, excuse me, ma'am, you don't have that say anymore. And but it's okay, Barbara, we're running out of time. This is driving me nuts, but you've got to come back on if you're willing to. I'd love to talk to you about that mindset and that mind frame you put yourself in when we don't remember that we're all humans. And yes, they've accomplished this and they've accomplished that. But both the warrior and the hero may go through the same thing, and how they handled it is what we can learn from. So I'd love to have you back on the show, if you will. And I'd love to give you the last few minutes to just share a message out of the visibility factor of what we've been here to talk about through this hour. Just anything you'd like to leave our audience with before we share all the ways to connect with you.
What growth she's experienced, Susan, because a year ago she couldn't even do that, and now she
I still to this day don't watch my own shows.
Oh,
but I'll get to that point.
You will. You're going to learn a lot from yourself if you do that.
I do.
Yeah. I would say that what we're talking about here is just embracing who you are, embracing what you're great at, your unique gifts, and not only doing this professionally, but personally, because I realized for myself that I wasn't showing up in the best way to set an example for my kids. So what we're talking about is owning who you are, speaking out, talking about the things that you want. It's totally fine to ask for what you want, but I didn't know that for a long time, or to ask for help from others. I didn't know that either for a long time. So to me, one of the things I say to people all the time is you have a lot of value to bring, you have a lot of impact that you can make, and you just need to share that with other people so that they can see it too, notice you, and give you opportunities for promotions or more things that you might want in your life. But they won't know that if you don't share it.
That is so true. Susan M. Barber has been our guest. Go to her website, which is susanmbarber.com, surprisingly enough. And you can get the book of The Visibility Factor at Amazon or anywhere else, or a local bookseller. Go in there and say, you need to buy a dozen copies of this and stick them on the shelf. That's what you need to do. So, Susan, thank you. And Rochelle said it best. Will you come back and see us again?
Yes, I would love to.
Thank you so much. Rochelle, because we ain't done. We ain't done with you yet, young lady. We got more stuff.
More stuff.
Yeah.
There's
Thank you
always
so much, Susan.
Thank you. And I would say you're a lot further along, Rochelle, than you are giving yourself credit for, because you are really wise beyond your years already.
Thank you. I will soak that in.
Excellent. And great job, Kevin, to help you get there for sure.
Yes, that's my dude. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your day, and we'll be back tomorrow.
Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.